So one of the questions I've been asked several times over the years and I've responded to individually in like texts or DMs is, what do you bring on the river for a creek wading mission? And I want to break it down because there's a big tournament tomorrow for the Napa Pro wading season, and it's the tournament's championship. And I'm getting ready, and I was thinking, you know what? That would be a great time to break down everything I go to take to be absolutely prepared on the water. So let's check it out.
Matt's Fishin' Mission. Matt's Fishin' Mission. Matt's Fishin' Mission.
First things first, what do I use to take everything on the water? I have fallen in love with, and I actually branded it for myself. I put my patch on there. It's the Teton Sport. It's actually a kind of a camping / camelback bag, but I don't typically use the camelback because if I want to bring water, I just put it in a side pocket. But let me show you everything that this bag comes with. First of all, on the bottom, it actually has a rain cover that Velcros out, and it's got its own attached rain cover. So if you're, in a storm shower, and I used this the other day because I keep my batteries in here, and I don't want my batteries getting wet. But it's got multiple pouches. So right here is where I usually keep my batteries. Right here is where I usually keep my keys, wallet, and my scale. And it's got 2 large pouches. Right here is where I keep all my baits. Everything I'm going to fish with goes in here. And then in the back, you got to keep some sanitary wipes. You got to keep your butt wipes back there. And I usually throw like any snack I've got, jerky or trail mix or something like that in the back. And then in the sides, will typically be like my sunglasses, a marker if I need to write on my hand, and maybe a bottle of water or something like that. But this is the bag I use. I love it because it's got this nice padded backside, so it's very comfortable to use. I have to have something that has a chest latch. So when I put this on, I need the support to carry all this weight, because sometimes I do bring my drone along. So it's got to have a chest strap to help relieve some of that weight. And it's also got a belly strap. I hardly ever use the belly strap, but it does have a belly strap. If you're really, if your back's starting to get tired and, you're wearing out over the day, you might throw that belly strap on. But that is everything I use, and it even has a little safety whistle in case you get lost in the woods. I'm never that far in the woods. All right, so let's deck this thing out. Let's fill it up. Like I said, I bring batteries along. I have this little 6 divider for all my batteries. And what I use this for is when I'm done with a battery, I'm like, Matt, how do I know which one's dead and which one's alive? Well, when I'm done with them and I know the battery is spent, I take it and I turn it facing the opposite direction. So anything that's facing one way is all alive. Anything facing the other way is a dead battery. So that's a good way to like organize and keep my battery straight. So that, if I have a day where I know I'm gonna get rained on, I definitely bring these because the GoPro has a hatch which keeps this waterproof. If I know I'm in a nice sunny day, and especially a longer day, I'm gonna rock an external battery, which I then slide in my backpack, and then use a wire which goes up to my hat, which I'm gonna show later because the hat is a key component to this whole shebang. So I usually take all my battery supplies, and that goes in this front outer pocket right there. Boom. Now, what do I put in the upper top pocket? Well, this is in case I get too submerged in water, I want this to be the highest thing up here. So this is my keys, wallet, and my scale. So I put my keys in there. I've got my scale. I've forgotten to bring my scale in days. I think I might have broke my PB, so never again. I always bring a little cheap $12 scale just to make sure. I hardly ever use that, but the times I have needed it, I didn't have it. So I'm always bringing one of those. All right. On the outside of the bag, before we fill it all up, I always have a pair of pliers of some sort. I like these little cheap Bass Pro ones because if this thing comes detached or loose, I'm only out like $5. Plus they are braid snippers as well, so if you need to cut any braid. I attach it to a little bungee on a lanyard, and I put it right here on the top latch of my pack, and then it can just dangle over. And then as I'm wearing it, so what I do is I come over the shoulder with that little bungee, and then it fits perfectly in one of the little loops right here at my chest pocket. That way I've got my pliers ready to go. They're really convenient to use. It's not flopping around. It's not getting caught on anything, and easy to grab. Now, the type of baits and the selection of baits I use can vary widely depending on where I'm going, what I'm doing, what time of year it is, et cetera, et cetera. But I typically always like to use one of these waterproof Plano boxes. And the waterproof is key because you never know when you're gonna take a spill, take a fall, get dunked, and you just never know, right? Because I've done that plenty of times, and I want to make sure everything I got in here is nice and waterproof, and if it does hit the water, it's floating at the top and not sinking to the bottom, because I've had that happen before. So that one goes in the second outer pocket. So it goes in there, not the one closest, because I like to keep things flat in the back pocket so it doesn't kind of poke into my back all day long. I'm always rocking a pair of shades, you know, the old Smalley Spotskis, making sure you got polarized lenses, and if I'm not using those, or if it's raining or it's super cloudy out, something like that, those I'm putting right in the side pocket to stow away. And one of the key things to remember, especially if you're a tournament fisher, make sure you got a Sharpie. I typically will put that in the little side pocket as well. Make sure, you know, if my code comes off my hand and I need to rewrite it, I always got a marker on hand. We've all been there. We've all had it happen, but sometimes you just got to do the business in the woods. So I keep a little small, like almost empty, like it's only like 20, so I don't want a lot of weight in there. Just, you know, 10, 20 wipes left in a wet wipe pack, nice and flat in the very back pocket, nice and flat. And then of course, Jeff's Famous Beast Jerky. I bring my snacks and I put those in the very back pocket. Those are also in the back, nice and flat, so when I'm hiking it doesn't rub up against my back. And also on tournament days, you're going to want to... Also on tournament days, you'll typically sometimes need a catch board, and so I keep my flat stuff in the back so I can slide the catch board right in the back. So when I'm wearing this, I can really easily access that. That way, if I'm fishing and I need to get to a bank and take a picture of my fish, boom, you got it quiver style right in your back, ready to go. And then I can just grab that back portion, slide it back there, and I'm ready to fish again. So I keep that little back slot open to carry my catch board on tournament days. So what do I bring or wear beyond my backpack? Well, one of the things that comes in clutch, and you'll regret not having one if you don't already have one, is a good net. And I like this rubber net. This is just, I think, a $20 one I got off of Amazon. And it's a rubber net, so you're not really dealing with, if hooks get caught in this, they're very easy to come out. You're not having to dig out snags and hooks that are just get bound up in some of that thread style netting. I love this as a rubber net. It's gonna catch, I mean, I've netted some 4-5 pound fish in here. No problem at all. I've actually netted a 10-pound buffalo, smallmouth buffalo in this. So not a bad fish. Probably not something you're gonna use for pike or muskie, but it'll get the job done if you're out there bass fishing or doing anything smaller. Now, I like to attach this. This has a little bungee, little cord attached to it. So I loop it back over the handle, and I wear, you know, one of those cheap belts that come with some of your outdoor style pants. Well, I use that and then just wear it around my waist, and it just kind of dangles along. So if I need to grab it real quick, I just grab it, scoop the fish, and makes it easy for landing all those fish that we've all had it happen. We've all had those fish just flop off right as you're about to pick them up, and it's heartbreaking. So bring a net, waiting. Now my outer gear changes depending on what time of the year it is. I typically don't wear waders or wading pants in the heat of summer because it's just, man, you will roast. It's so hard to put waders on in the summertime. I typically like wet wading. Some people don't enjoy wet wading and they don't like the thought of either leeches or parasites being on their legs or body or whatever. That's cool. If you can bear the heat, go for it. I typically in the dead summer, I'm just gonna rock some basketball shorts, or if I am going into an area where I know I've got like stinging nettles, I'll wear some light outdoor pants. But the shoes, I will pretty much always wear some good wading style boots. And there are a couple to choose from. Personally, I like using 8 Fans. They are a sponsor of mine, but I was using them well before they picked me up. They've got 2 different kinds of boots, right? You've got for wading, you've got rubber soled boots and you've got felt soled boots. And they range in application of what you need. For rubber soled boots, if you're on maybe like a crushed, finer gravel, mud, or sand, the rubber sole boots is the way to go. If you're going in any area that's covered in algae, or you've got like slick rocks to walk over, the felt bottom boots, they almost act as Velcro on that. Now, I will say there are give and take on that. If you're in a muddy area, the felt bottom boots are not the way you want to go. The felt bottom boots will be very slick. It'll be like walking on ice skates if you're trying to navigate mud on felt bottom boots. They're not made for that. They're made for walking over rocks. Now, on the opposite flip side, the rubber-soled boots have that nice thick tread, and those are where you're going to want to use the rubber-soled boots in mud. But when you're trying to go over slick covered algae, those rubber sole boots are going to be a little slick. So, if you're trying to think, okay, what's the best all-purpose for Southern Ohio, where we've got a little bit of mix of everything, I like going with a felt bottom boot. There are some places where I'll have to be in the mud and it'll be a little slick, but I just navigate over them because the majority of the time I want control over my body when I'm in the water, and that's where the felt bottom boots come in. So I like those. If you're not really wanting to spend the money on good wading boots, a good pair of sneakers will work. Get something with a high, like thicker, more robust tread, like an outdoor style sneaker. That'll work for you. But I've seen people go fishing in all kinds of stuff. Things you don't want to go fishing in. Crocs. Crocs are slick as ice over almost any surface, but I do bring Crocs on every mission because these are my post-wading gear. They go in the trunk, and when I'm taking off my boots, I slide on the old Crocs so I can go into a restaurant without dripping my wet boots all over everything or wherever I need to go. So Crocs are definitely a part of my bring to the river. They're just not going in the river particularly. Now, speaking of what to wear in the river, whether it's in the heat of summer and you're wearing shorts, or if it's a little bit in the colder, like spring or fall, I like to wear wading pants. And 8 Fans has a selection of wading pants. If you've got something that's got the neoprene stocking feet, and then you can wear whatever footwear that you like over top of them, that's the way I like to go in the spring and winter. Now, or spring and fall, I'm sorry. In the wintertime, I want to rock a full-on waders that come up to my chest because I want to make sure that none of that icy cold water is going anywhere near in case I do have a little slip up. Neoprenes can work in the wintertime. I find that neoprenes are a little bit uncomfortable because the built-in boots, they just don't have the comfort, and they don't snug to your feet unless you are putting multiple socks on. For me, they're good and they're going to keep you warm without any extra layers. But they're not very comfortable. When the water sucks into your foot, and if this is your shin, that boot just constantly rubs on your shin. So if you're going to wear neoprene style built-in boots, make sure you wear some protective layers over your legs and shins to keep, especially if you're going on a long wade, to keep that from rubbing on your shins and irritating your feet and causing a blister. Now, I like to wear breathable waders and then put on like long johns and sweatpants underneath those, just a couple layers. It's much more comfortable. I can wear the shoes I want. And for Ohio winters, it's not super freezy cold, so I can get away with wearing those breathable waders with a couple extra layers. So that's my choice of what I like to wear depending on what time of year it is. Now, Matt, I've seen you do some drone footage on your videos. Where do you store your drone? You're certainly not shoving that thing inside a backpack, right? Because it's got to be hard to do. Well, normally the Mavic drone that I've got, the little mini, comes in this case. Now, this would be hard to bring on the river unless you've got a large, like, backpacking, overnighting style bag. So what I do is I take just a single battery and I put it in the drone itself. I take the controller, right? So these are the only two things that go. And I have found this little dry bag is absolutely perfect for taking my drone on the river. Now, Matt, I've seen you do some drone footage on your videos. Where do you store your drone? You're certainly not shoving that thing inside a backpack, right? Because it's got to be hard to do. Well, normally the Mavic drone that I've got, the little mini, comes in this case. Now, this would be hard to bring on the river unless you've got a large, like, backpacking, overnighting style bag. So what I do is I take just a single battery and I put it in the drone itself. I take the controller, right? So these are the only two things that go. And I have found this little dry bag is absolutely perfect for taking my drone on the river. Let's load it up. So I like to go in controller first, right? I got my controller, then I've got my drone. And what I want to be careful not to do is crease or bend any of those propellers, because that can cause an issue when you're flying in the air. So when you load it in the bag, I just like to look and make sure my propellers aren't caught on anything, they're not being bent. And then you give this thing a couple rolls and then snap it together, just like that. So it's got this little carabiner clip, and I attach this to my bag, and then just for precaution, I take another carabiner clip, put it around this part, and then attach that to my bag. Because let me tell you what, you do not want to accidentally lose a $600 setup drone to a faulty carabiner clip. So I double safety my drone to the back of my bag. And then you just clip it on to any part of the bag. I usually clip this on the back. And then it just hangs over the back just like that. And I'm ready to get some nice aerial footage. Then, of course, you've got the absolute fishing basics, your rod and reel. And I typically like to use one rod. And it's just hard. Sometimes it's hard and not only hard, but uncomfortable to quiver another rod in the back of my backpack. I've already got enough going on back there. If I put another rod back there, it just gets in the way. I have to duck under trees and I'm inside branches. 2 rods is just too much. So with that kind of thinking, instead of bringing multiple setups, I typically throw a monofilament line because I want to be able to switch from topwater to throw in finesse, whatever I need to do. Creeks, I really don't need fluoro or braid because worrying about the line floating, I'm typically dealing with 1 to 3 foot of water anyway. So mono's absolutely perfect. I typically go with 8 pound because that's that nice sweet spot where I can get good casting distance, but still good strength. And it's got a good stretch for me for hook setting. So that's what I like to bring. Reels, I like to rock a 2000 size reel. That's the perfect amount of line. It gives me a little bit of extra in case I've got some sort of wind knot or snafu and I lose some line or have a snag or something breaks off. Size 2000 is kind of my go-to. Now, the rod selection is depending on really how I feel that day. I'll switch from like a 5'6" ultralight to a 6 foot light to a 7 foot medium light. Typically don't go heavier than that because I don't do a lot of flipping and pitching. I'm not working super heavy cover where I need like a heavy rod, or I'm using 20 pound braid or 25, 40 pound braid. I like to use that finesse style fishing, and the lighter gear is actually more fun for me to fight the fish. So I love feeling the fight using a lighter setup. So that's the kind of fishing rod and reel and line selection that I use. Now, the last thing, and probably the most important thing to bring the adventure to you guys, is the camera setup, the hat setup. A lot of people use chest mounts, but chest mounts, you get a lot of this, right? And no one wants to see that in your video. So I like using the hat mount because the perspective is a little bit taller, especially me being 6'4". You get a very like up above the action view. And so you'll see me out there. Plus, if something happens on the river, you see an animal, you hear a splash, boom, you're on the action. Instead of having to jump and turn your whole body with that chest mount. I find that this is the best way. Now, some people say this is not comfortable. It is not comfortable on a trucker hat. I typically always have to use a fitted hat. And you can see this one is seeing its better wear and tear of the days. We've got a new hat video coming, so I'm gonna show you guys in another video how exactly to make this hat mount and how it all goes down, and you can make your own. But essentially, it's just a GoPro mount bolted in to the bill of the hat, and it's super comfortable. I've had this set up for over 5 years, and it's been one of the better ideas that I've used as far as bringing adventures to you guys. I feel it's like a really nice perspective to see everything from up above. Plus, it makes all my friends look really, really short. Well, those are my essentials list, guys. What do you bring on the river? Is there anything that I missed that would be beneficial to me or to other anglers? What are some things you bring on the river that work for you in your conditions, your waterways, your type of adventure? Of course, there are different kind of missions. Like I would bring a whole different setup and a lot more stuff on a kayak mission than I would a creek wading mission. It's just so much you can bring in your backpack. Comment down below what you guys bring on your adventures. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything I should be bringing that I'm not? Comment that down below. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next Fishin' Mission.
You're watching Matt's Fishing Mission. Always be on mission.